Don does his sessions about 3 a.m. Sydney time. So that's, 6 hours earlier than it is right now. So if you're interested in his, the link to his is also on the webpage. And if those of you that are interested in mental imaging, give Don a call. He's got another class starting this Wednesday. His email is donbeck@donbeck.org if you are interested in mental image calling or taking some lessons on that. And I want to say thanks, Mark, again, for everything that you do. Mark hosts our website, posts everything else, and is also the co-host of these sessions. And when I'm unavailable, he hosts the sessions and sometimes gets them already organized for me. I'm jealous.
Yay,
because
Mark.
his sessions are generally better than mine. So thank you very much, as always, and welcome back, everybody. So I'm just going to share my screen here. And that PowerPoint presentation come up?
Yes.
Good. Yeah. All right. So this is a recent question and a recent discussion that's come up, but it's really an old question. And that's on the difference between the term left and the term reverse, as both of them are modifiers. It's not a new question, but again, it was prompted by the addition or the need that we as callers sometimes have for over-clarification. And what happens in Caller Lab is there tends to be over-qualification. And then it sometimes just adds to the confusion. Recently, Caller Lab added the naming of movements, reverse, wheel around, etc., into the definitions of the basic program. Now, this was not it's now allowed, because the left modifier or the reverse modifier were always allowed. They've always been part of the definitions. They were just not really well clarified or well explained. And what you had was a quick explanation, and then say, for additional information, see commands. And the command was command, reverse, no explanation, whatever. Unfortunately, other than references in those definition documents, until you get to the advanced level or different levels, most of the clarifications are not well explained and offer absolutely no help or support, especially to new or newer callers trying to understand what may or may not be proper use of left or reverse. So let's start with what we know. Okay, the left modifier, when used as a prefix to a call, generally instructs dancers to interchange all left and rights throughout the call. Okay, for example, a movement that starts with an undefined right hand can be given the modifier left in order to change or exchange that starting hand. Example, square through or left square through, or swing through, left swing through, touch a quarter, left touch a quarter. Okay. Very, very few calls say right something, because it's always going to be a right unless it's otherwise qualified or defined in the definition. So that's changing an undefined hand or an undefined pass. The modifier reverse is also a prefix call, but it instructs the dancers to interchange the directions of clockwise and counterclockwise. And when doing that, if it has an adjustment of the hands, that's included, right and left accordingly to the whole. So one's a change of hands or shoulders. When it's undefined, that's your left. And the other one is a change of direction. And that can also include the hands. An example of that would be flutter wheel, reverse flutter wheel, or wheel around, reverse wheel around, Dixie style to an ocean wave, reverse Dixie style, that kind of stuff. Okay. Now there are two big ticket items to be aware of. And if you keep that in mind, this is all going to make sense. So if you say left, it's an interchange of hands or shoulders without a relative change in flow. And if it's reverse, it's a relative change in flow, and the hand interchange may or may not be included. Now, this is where the confusion starts to reign. It's pretty straightforward, you would think, but the terms left and reverse have been in the definition since before I started calling, and for some of you calling longer than I have, it's been around a lot longer than that. The application of left and reverse are integral parts of the basic program. And I say that because they are basic qualifications. However, the explanations on how to apply them have always been stated vaguely. This session itself came from a piece of exercise choreography on symmetry in which the caller used left star through. Okay, by the way, left star through was a named call at one point, but it's no longer used. It might be a challenge, but I don't call that level. So, and quite frankly, it really doesn't matter for the sake of this. Interestingly enough, however, those questions arose because calling programs like Taminations or Calorama would not support left star through or left slide through. It was a short explanation to re-explain what the concept of mirror symmetry was, but a much longer explanation to explain why left and reverse concepts won't work in many cases, even when the explanations should say they should work. First, let's have a qualification. New or newer callers, when you're exploring left concepts and reverse concepts beyond what is named in the definitions or what is clearly named in the programs, simply put, don't. It's not a good idea at basic and mainstream to expand much beyond that. The reason for this is, the reason for this is that there's so much material and information to understand as a dancer and be confident and comfortable with and competent as a caller well before the expansion of concept calling. And that's what it is, it's concept calling. Your dancers at that level are relatively new these days, and it's just too much contradiction for them to learn and to grasp onto. That was one of the other reasons why things like reverse wheel around was put into the basic program as a named definition. It was to rein in a lot of this technical nonsense that many callers were having because they were calling for themselves and not the dancers. Unfortunately, today, many callers begin their calling career coming from dancing around plus right through to A2 or even very high levels like challenge without having a solid grasp of these fundamentals. Most of these are excellent dancers and they decide to become callers, sometimes out of necessity. And they expect the dancers to be able to grasp every quick concept the same way they can. Now, I know that's an oversimplification, but it's a separate topic and we're not going to cover that here, but just take that with a grain of salt. That oversimplifies part of a problem, but it is a problem. In a few cases, some of these callers go back and learn the fundamentals of the basic and mainstream program and develop a solid foundation to build from. Unfortunately, a lot of others don't. And what you end up with is callers calling for callers. The development of the left concept beyond left swing through or left do side do and a few others is something that requires a very solid grasp of the fundamentals of calling and the fundamentals of dancing. It is higher extended basics and higher extended mainstream dancing that develops and continues to develop through the Plus program into the advanced program with the application of left as a prefix. It's not just an intuitive change to do something normally right-handed with the left hand. It's not intuitive. Don't expect it to be. So if we want to understand this concept, let's have a look at one movement. The one I've chosen is star through. Now, it was pointed out to me recently, however, that the term left is often used as a qualifier for teaching, which still leads to confusion in the applications by those that see an experienced caller using it and believe it to be correct. So if you're mentoring somebody and you use left star through as an example to explain something, they think it's perfectly legitimate. It's perfectly allowed. It's perfectly okay. It's not. The best example of this is, of course, at the advanced level, the movement double or triple star through. Although left star through is no longer deemed proper, the terminology is often still used for clarification prompts. For example, star through, left star through, new person star through, and that's how a quick prompt of triple star through is done. So to clarify this, let's have a look at this basic movement. Okay, star through, we've got the named dancers, facing dancer, man facing a woman, not a problem. Man palm up, meets the ladies, arch is made, lady goes forward and turns left, man goes forward and turns right a quarter, the hands come down, and you end as a couple. That's a very simplified version of it. Now at advanced, you have double and triple star through, but they have not referred to the man or the lady in this instance. The indicator of right star through and left star through, however, has for many years been used, and then it was dropped. Now it says, rather than use right or left, it says the definition says, the mirror image, and then it clarifies it. So what you've got is from any appropriate formation, normal facing couples, as an example, those who can star through, that's the basic definition. Those who can do the mirror image of a star through. And then it says an arch is made with the man's left hand and the woman's right hand. And then it goes on. So again, there is more to this, but that's the key part to read. The same qualification is made on triple star through. As you note, the term left star through is not involved in there. Okay, so keep that in mind. So when we say that, we have to understand what is a left call. To understand what left is, it's important to look at the two often ignored appendices and in the definitions that clarify what is a left call. When you get there, what's generally vague is reference to what is left interpretation, such as left when using a prefix call. Left generally instructs the dancers to interchange all lefts and rights through the call. This gets even more confusing when we get into the applications review committee. Okay. In 2004, they defined the left concept by saying, at what program do we expect dancers to know the left concept, i.e. lead to the left, left turn through, left box and that, left trade by and all that? And their answer was, at mainstream, most dancers should be able to do these calls except left trade by. If the dancers don't know how to do them and have never heard of them, they should be workshopped. Now, a lot of good caller judgment must be used when branching out in this area, and it should not be taken too far. That's from the ARC. My translation on this is a lot simpler. The concept, the left concept, it applies to most things that are right-hand starts, but also to left-hand starts. Dancers should know the left concept, and callers should use common sense and not be idiots about using it. Pardon the expression. In other words, don't be a you-know-what. Once again, you can't look at just a single concept definition, but you have to review the entirety of left as opposed to reverse in that context, because the two are often interchanged. So again, looking for that clarification, the place we go back to is the ARC, which is the Applications Review Committee, because questions go in, they do the research, they make a decision, and we all agree to abide by that until they change their minds, and they do. In 2002, the ARC dealt with a specific question, and that was on the reverse they dealt with the specific question of star through back in 2002. I'll come to that in a bit. The reverse concept, although commences at basic, was also qualified in 2004. And that was, at which program do we expect dancers to know the reverse concept, such as reverse roll away, reverse half sachet, reverse do passo, reverse circle to a line, in reverse order, right and left through. Okay, and it's very, very distinct definition change there. And the answer was, dancers should not be expected to know this until beyond the plus program. However, some of them can be used at mainstream and plus if the caller is very careful not to overuse the concept. Please note, however, it's not reverse right and left through, but a prompted command in reverse order right and left through. It is not left and right through, and it's definitely not left, right, and left through. So you have to take it that way. Again, what it boils down to is teach the dancers these concepts early: reverse wheel around, reverse flutter wheel, and so forth. Teach them early, but don't be an idiot about it, you know. Now, oops. There we go. Okay, so all this doesn't really help much. Here's where we really confuse the issue, because the ARC is the people that we go to ask these questions and get an answer for. Okay, so the question was reverse star through. Is it proper to call reverse star through? And that was essentially question. If it's incorrect to use left star through, would reverse star through be correct? Well, once again, the ARC came to the rescue, and their rescue was to confuse things even more. In 2002, a decision was made on star through in the query, reverse star through. Is it proper to call reverse star through? And they said, no, there already exists in the advanced definitions the term left star through, and there's no need to change. The term reverse star through tends to implicate one of two things. The lady should use her right hand and the man should use his left hand, with the man going under the arch and the lady going around behind the man. Or the action would cause the dancers to undo star through while going backwards. The word reverse means go backwards, and this usage is not in the mainstream or plus program, which is in direct contrast to what they said about the mainstream, or about the term reverse. It's in direct contrast with what's in the definition defining reverse, which is the interchange of flow, and it's usually a forward flow. And it's in direct contrast with the mirror image style of how you're going to use a reverse call. Where it even gets better is the ARC said the concept exists. It already exists at the advanced level. Left star through is not defined anywhere in the advanced definitions. I've gone back to 1981 and I haven't found left star through in the advanced definitions, whereas reverse is defined and it does not mean go backwards. So thank you, ARC, for confusing what should be a simple concept. So I took it a step further and I said, look, there's some ground rules. It's important to acknowledge that the terms left and reverse as concept begin at the basic level. They should be used with good judgment, and that judgment should be carried through to the mainstream program, then to the plus program, and to the advanced program, and build successively upon each other. At advanced, both left and reverse concept modifiers actually get expanded, further clarified, and even better, the clarification actually includes the use of left or reverse actions that have been introduced basic, mainstream, and plus, and they actually name specific calls to which they apply. And they say if it's not named, it needs to be workshopped or don't use it. It's that simple. Much as I don't really call advanced or higher level, they at least got that part of their definitions and clarifications absolutely correct. The one thing I want to stress, and this is a common complaint, this is a one-way trip of block building. Okay, you start small and you start at basic. You start small and clean, and then you expand upward. Do not bring plus, advanced, and challenge use and those concepts down to basic and mainstream. There's enough to learn in these concepts already. So if it's not there and it's one of these concepts that you can't call without bringing something from the advanced or the challenge program down to the basic program to get a good dance, then, well, quite frankly, you should put the mic away, go back to the books, go back to a college school, and learn how to call a dance and learn the techniques of calling and building a foundation. I'm not saying that to be derogatory or hurtful. That's an opinion, and it's my opinion. Okay, so the left modifier, if you remember, it's a one-way trip. It applies to calls and it interchanges right and left hands. And if also applicable, it interchanges bell and bow, and also clockwise and counterclockwise. The important thing is it's the hands, and then if the hands change, the rest gets affected. The left should only be used to modify calls where a right hand turn or a shoulder pass is clearly part of the definition. Okay, and if you can remember that, that makes it much, much more clear. So you've got a call that starts with a right pull by, such as square through or square chain through or split square through. You know, those all start with the right hand, modify, left square through, left square chain through, etc. If it has a pass through or a passing action, we all know a passing action is a right shoulder. So we can have that passing action with the left shoulder, left do-si-do, left pass through, left pass and roll, left track two, left wheel and deal from a one-face line, those kinds of things. Tag the lines. If there's a tag action, full tag, half tag, three-quarter tag, left turn and deal, you know, those things can all be modified as well. If there's a right arm turning action, swing through would become left swing through, turn through would become left turn through. If there's a fractional turn, okay, like a turn by the right, such as 1/4 through or remake the dar, well, you can qualify that with left 1/4 through. A touch call, touch a quarter, or I don't call it, but spin the windmill. Left touch a quarter, left spin the windmill. If there's a right turning action, and I mean there's a couple, such as left wheel through as opposed to wheel through, because that's a right shoulder pass on a wheel through as they pass through each other, and passing through the couples, it's a right hand action. Left wheel through, make sure that those dancers are going to pass left shoulders. It's very, very confusing that way. Left roll to a wave, left chase, all those kinds of things. And it also applies to the facing couple rule with a left call. So let's do like a left hand wave, left swing through from facing couples, left spin the top, left relay the Dixie, left 3/4 the top, all those kinds of things. More importantly, it adds callers, don't be a you-know-what. That's what these qualifications do. They add specifically that phrase, use common sense and logic. And if it's not part of the common vernacular, workshop it. That's what it says. But what it's really saying is, look, common sense isn't common. If you're calling this stuff and they can't dance it and you're not workshopping it very, very gingerly, then you're calling for yourself and not the dancers. If a different modifier, they also say, and this is important, if there is a modifier out there that performs the same action as a left modifier, such as a wrong way promenade or a reverse flutter wheel, then don't use the left modifier. Use the reverse modifier, or use what is out there that will do what it is you want to do. You don't have to call a technically right, or it meets the technicalities of the definition just to sound clever. All you're doing is putting more work on the dancers, and that's never success. Remember, the left modifier does not affect other directions that are explicitly given in the movement. For example, in left spin the windmill, as an example, the outsides are going to go to the right. The left will only apply to the centers, and this use of left is only necessary for facing couples. So as you get to higher levels, it expands more. And the only way to understand that is you have to understand the concepts at basic, mainstream, plus, advanced, and then up to A2. Don't bring those concepts from A2 down to basic. Now, what I'm going to say now is a very important statement, and it indicates that at advanced, you should already understand the concept of left modifiers thoroughly, and that they should be used properly and frequently. And this states this in the definitions at advanced. At advanced, the left version of the calls are part of the program even when they are not explicitly listed. It says that. The clarification of that is further expanded that says to let you know that reverse modifier being referred to is what you should know and apply at advanced, i.e., it's already known to the dancers unless there is a named reverse of a movement which is part of the advanced program, and that will be specified in the definitions. So remember that. So left, you got to learn it early. Build small, carry it through. Don't bring it from the top down, bring it from the bottom up. So that's left. Let's look at reverse. The reverse modifier applies to certain calls that interchange the bell and the bow, or the bow and the bell, and the direction of clockwise and counterclockwise. And if it's applicable, right hand and left hands. But the important difference is it's a change in flow direction first. And these are things like roll away, reverse roll away, half sachet, reverse half sachet, wheel around, reverse wheel around, courtesy turn, reverse courtesy turn, flutter wheel, reverse flutter, Dixie style to wave, reverse Dixie style, and the list goes on. Okay, I've got recycle down there from facing couples. That's at the A2 level. So, but it applies going up. You wouldn't do that, bring that down. The same general rule applies though. Don't be a you-know-what. At advanced, dancers are expected to apply the reverse qualifier to calls listed. So they actually go through at advanced and list these calls. Other applications of reverse should be workshopped or avoided. Now that's important because then again, it's caller, use good common sense and judgment. So how do we put common sense and judgment into perspective? Well, let's go back to that question of left star through. The movement star through doesn't meet the criteria of the left modifier, even though technically it meets all the rules. And the term left star through was dropped as a modifier movement, and as an explanation in teaching because it doesn't meet those criteria. Now, wait a minute, that's sort of self-contradictory. Hence, that's why we have the term it's now called, which is a mirror image, not left. In short, the answer is no. Left star through is inappropriate, and it would be an inappropriate use. So if this is the case, where are we going to start? Well, amongst callers, and probably in this group as well, there's going to be mixed opinion and discussion as to where the concepts of left and reverse should begin. Many callers state, don't do it until advanced. Others of the opinion, begin early. My opinion is, I believe that both the left and the reverse concept should begin at the basic level, especially with those calls that are defined and listed, but should be tempered with common sense in the application. Calling variations that need a technical explanation and a serious walkthrough each time that movement is used is not common sense. So that's just a simple guideline. If you have to explain it, teach it, reteach every single time you call it, then you shouldn't be using it. That will go up and progress once they have the fundamental concepts down. Use of a left swing through from an Alamo wave as an example, or heads left square through is common and it's fully acceptable at basic, as is left do side do, make a left hand wave, or center start, left swing through from a right hand wave, or these kinds of things. Often there's an argument that says, my dancers don't have a problem. We dance this all the time. Well, that's perfectly fine. And that's great. If your dancers in your club enjoy it and you're successful, keep on going. Just remember, though, that club applications and success at a club level do not make the use common. If you're the only caller in your area calling reverse Dixie style as an example, or do side do to a wave left swing through without center start or anything like that, that doesn't make it improper, just uncommon. And that's where judgment has to apply. Now, that's not a gospel or a law or anything like that. That's just my opinion. But to me, that's just common sense. Just remember, as a general rule, left is a hand or passing modifier, and reverse is a flow direction modifier. So what are our program specifics? The use of left concept begins at the basic program, and early form left concepts are listed in descriptive terminology. These are the following calls that are pretty much given that directive prompt. You've got a left double pass through, a left swing through, and that would be from a left hand wave or right hand waves, or facing couples as applicable. It applies to all of them. Left square through, left do side do, left touch a quarter, left pull by as a directional call. Other directional calls would, left arm turn, not to be confused with turn through and left turn through. Boys step out to the left and backtrack, or boys step into the left and backtrack. Left run or run left, okay? That's used where ambiguity occurs. So let's say I have a boy, girl, ocean wave, and I say, and we're a line and we're facing in, I say, girls run. Which way are they going to run? I would qualify that with a direction prompt. That's not the same as a qualifier on the call. It's a directional prompt. Heads or sides lead to the left, those kinds of things. Again, it's a directional prompt. It's not a left concept call. At the mainstream level, there's very little further clarification on the word left. However, much of it relates to the word left as a helper word in things like left-hand waves, or as a direction to make a left-hand wave when the facing coupler rules. That brings us into the concept of necessary versus acceptable. If it's acceptable, that means you can use it for clarification, but don't make a habit of it. If it's necessary, it must be used as required by the definition. Now, to determine what it is on those, for instance, from a left-hand wave, the phrase left spin the top is considered acceptable. It's defined as outsides, insides, okay? And it starts with the out where the hands joined on the outside, the new centers will cast 3/4 and the new ends will move up. Now that's, again, an oversimplification. Left is not really necessary there, but it's a helper word and it can be used and it can be weaned off. That's considered acceptable. Left scoot back is also a helper word and it's considered acceptable. It's not part of the definition and it should be weaned off. However, let's take an ocean wave. We got head square through or whatever. We end up in an ocean wave after Ferris wheel. Centers pass through, left swing through. It's necessary to qualify that there because we're changing what is normally a right-hand action to a left-hand action. So that's where you have to draw your line in your program specific, what is necessary and what is acceptable. And they become very, very clear once you start using them. Although they're not specified in the definitions, other common sense things, left uses at the mainstream would be a left tag the line. So for instance, if you have the centers trading with a left hand and you call tag the line, you want to maintain that forward momentum. If they're static, they'll turn. If they're right hands and they're trading and you call left tag the line, it means they got to roll on the spot. Common sense would say a left tag the line would work better if the centers were trading with the right hand. It doesn't, because you've got that forward flow momentum coming off the trade. Things along that line. Although not specified in definitions, other common sense things are left uses at mainstream, left tag the line where the left turn through, right hand free action following a movement like a double pass through, or sorry, from a double pass through position, you would call centers left turn through, then a swing through to get that flow going. That's where it's necessary. Facing couples, it's necessary to say things like left spin the top, because that ocean wave, or sorry, that facing couple rule applies. You have to establish a left-hand wave because there is no left-hand wave established. The same thing applies to left swing through from facing couples. And although it's not specified, left tag the line is quite often used at the mainstream level in some places, as is left turn through. But again, I draw you back to what that general guideline was. You may use it in your club, but if nobody else in your area uses it, it's not common. Don't expect that, not every caller is going to be calling as good as you are or as limited as you are. The focus is on the dancers, and what you have to do to give them success is what's important. So at mainstream, the most common concepts are left turn through, left spin chain through, left spin the top, left tag the line, left half tag, usually from a left-hand two-face line, that kind of stuff. In my opinion, which really isn't worth much anyway, at the basic and mainstream level, there's no need to go beyond those applications that are listed above when using left as a movement modifier. Okay, through the plus program, the use of left should be more prevalent, and then advanced, more prevalent, and then so on and so on. It gets more and more prevalent. However, by that time, the dancer should be pretty solid with the concept. So that pretty much qualifies the left modifier. And a little bit on the reverse modifier. We've talked about choreography, but what about the callers? Well, general guideline is the same applies to new or newer callers. Expansion of the left concept beyond that which is listed is not and should not even be given consideration in the learning process of developing fundamentals of good calling. Okay? There's so much more to learn first. There's enough material to achieve your desired goals without looking for something funky and strange to call it the basic and mainstream level, just because somewhere someone used a version of a left call in an advanced or a challenge program. Okay? In relative terms, what it means is if you need to search for technicalities and allowable variations from advanced and challenge in order to call a basic and mainstream dance, you're not ready to be calling basic and mainstream. That's harsh. It's my opinion, but I think I'll stand by it. So where does reverse fit into this? Well, pretty much the same as the left concept. It begins at the basic program, and it's defined in the Caller Lab program as a prefix call that generally instructs the dancers to interchange the direction of a clockwise and a counterclockwise flow. And then if it happens, also left and right through the call. Okay, it's flow first. With regard to the reverse modifier, these are the ones that I've run across at mainstream. Most of them, thankfully, have disappeared. Some of them have come back. I only called it A1, so I'm quite sure there's probably a lot more, but I'm not overly worried about them because at A2, you should have this concept down pretty much, and the terms are listed. I'm more concerned about the concept call of challenge being brought down to basic or mainstream, where, quite frankly, it just doesn't belong. In simple terms, common sense. Don't be you-know-what if you want to call this kind of stuff. So basic and mainstream, reverse as a movement direction, circle left. Reverse, go the other way back, or reverse wheel around as opposed to wheel around. Reverse flutter wheel, that's defined. Around here, reverse Dixie style, and I know that's used quite frequently in Europe, but it may not be common in your area, so you'd have to workshop it. Reverse roll away, not used very much. Reverse half sachet is used a lot here, but it may not be in your area. Reverse single circle to a wave, or, you know, reverse circle 3/4 to a line. All these kinds of things are available. Actually, that'd be a left circle, but circle right or circle left, 3/4 to a line. So take that reverse one out of there. All those things are available at the basic and mainstream level, but if they're not common in your area, workshop it if you're going to use it. Don't make it common until it is common. At plus, you got your reverse cast off 3/4, reverse courtesy turn, reverse half sachet. That carries through, reverse circle to a line. These are things that they actually name or state. Reverse slide through. I hate that. I don't understand that at all. But it's listed there. Reverse the top, reverse the wave. And of course, at advanced, all of these are considered acceptable and are named. If they're not named, workshop them first. I think we just did that slide, didn't we? Yes, 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 we did. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Okay, the reverse modifier, remember, it's a one-way trip. Interchanges the bells and bows. Don't be, you know what. I don't need to go on to that because it's pretty much the same idea as the left modifier. All the same common sense guidelines apply to the reverse modifier. Just remember, at advanced, dancers are expected to apply reverse to the listed calls. Everything else should be reversed. So the reason they say that is because at advanced, you should know all of those listed calls already reversed. So the only way to get them known is to have it being taught to you already. Simply put, most callers know this, and I would expect the idea for newer callers to understand what left is, the modifier of the hands, right and shoulders interchanging right and left. For reverse, it's the flow interchange, and if it requires hand changes, that happens as part of the concept. Common sense should apply to the use of the left or the reverse as a modifier. It should be limited to the use of defined, generally common movements at each program level, and I mean that at each program level. And if you are going to expand the concept, such as reverse Dixie style, which is fairly common here or in Europe, it may not be common in Western Canada or parts of the US or wherever you are, then any reasonable caller would say, hey, I'm introducing something that's not common here. I'm going to give a quick workshop. I'm not going to give a detailed, long, exacerbated, strained walkthrough after walkthrough after walkthrough, teach, reteach for 45 minutes to do this call successfully once in a singing call. If you have to do that, you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. Okay, there's something that's not done in place to make it happen smoothly. So take a step back and think about that. Well, that's probably one of the most confusing concepts that we have in calling. There's a couple of things that were important to know. The facing couple rule is important. Okay, if I'm going to call swing through from facing couples, it starts with the right hand. If I want them to start with the left hand, I have to call left swing through. That's required. If I want to call spin the top from facing couples, that's a right hand. If I want them to use the left hand, I have to clearly state left spin the top. That's necessary. However, if I have an established ocean wave, I can call spin the top. If I have an established ocean wave, I can call left spin the top, but I don't have to. Okay, that's not necessary. It's an augmentation. That's to help the dancers. You can wean them off. If you keep necessary versus helping words, clearing your mind, you will not generally have any problem with this. Mark, were there any questions that came in the chat?
Judd, but I think you answered it. Just the one mainly about the left spin to top. Your opinion on it.
Okay. I'm just looking here. I'm thinking reverse single circle to a wave, no hand change, but has a flow direction. Yes, absolutely correct. It would be a reverse single circle. Also the difference between double star through and star through double. Double star through is a defined movement. Star through double means star through followed by star through. In my opinion, that's just bad choreography because you're doing a proper star through and a proper star through. Now, I could be wrong if that is a higher level concept at A2 or challenge. Again, I don't call that. So if somebody calls at A2 or challenge, is there a difference between double star through and star through double?
The proper thing is double star through, because star through double may be 2 star throughs.
Okay, so yeah, and that's what I say. If you want star through twice, well, call star through slide through. Don't call star through because it's awkward for the hands. How difficult is? Sorry, somebody had a comment there.
I was say, and Eric had a question about reverse Dixie style to a wave.
Okay, I kind of figured I kind of figured there'd be a lot on reverse Dixie style, so I actually prepared a little bit more. So we'll look at that once I've gone through the questions here, Eric.
Okay, sounds good.
Question: how difficult is left tag? Left tag the line is not difficult. For the caller, it's a little more difficult to realize that you want to do a left tag. Mainly, you're going to use it to establish a specific flow. What's interesting about a left tag is you're qualifying the left all the way down. So you need to say left tag the line. So it's going to be forward, face in, past left shoulders all the way down. That's what you're passing. Okay, it's not just the left turn at the beginning, it's the left shoulders. And that's important when you do a left half tag, a left 3/4 tag, or a left quarter tag, because you're establishing a left hand wave in that center. To set that up, you want to make sure your flow is there so that the dancers are going to move forward. The center dancers are going to be moving forward and to the left, and that's where you'll have your good flow. It's not so bad for the right-hand dancer because as they turn in, they're going to move forward and follow the lead dancer. Okay, but you have to be very aware of flows on that. Okay, I'm just going to finish this. Sorry, Guido, looks like you've actually answered some of this. Take a step forward, face in, face the center of the line. If the center's hold left, yeah, okay, that's from a German perspective. Absolutely correct, Guido. Before we go on to anything else, has anybody else got a comment about left tag or left half tag? We'll start with Ed, then Mickey, then I think Hannah, did you have your hand up? No? So we'll start with Ed first.
So if I have a right hand two-face line and I call ends run, that's a good flow for the left turn, left tag, correct?
It would work, and it would actually flow much more comfortable than from a right hand two-face. You said a right hand two-face line?
Yes.
Okay, if I call ends run, tag the line, they're going to run in, stop, make that left turn, and then they have to jink to their left. Okay, because very few people today make their ocean waves with their hand forward in the first place. However, if you call ends run, left tag the line, just like that, the action of going forward and around is there. The release of the tag is there. When those center dancers come into the center, they're going to pass and go forward to the left, which will be a much more comfortable flow. For the dancer on the end, they're doing a side step, or sorry, the new dancer that ends up on the end of the trailer, they're going to do a side step face in the same way they would do with a run tag the line. So there's no flow issue there. They've got enough room as the trailer to follow the lead dancer. So in my opinion, ends run left tag the line would be a better option. Ends run, tag the line to me is just jerky, unless you're one of those exceptional callers with exceptional dancers that actually make their elbows in, hands up, below the shoulders, forward, slightly apart, with crossed ocean waves that have that perfect W formation, and they dance perfectly. I have not seen that very often.
And with a right hand wave, it would be other, or just a left hand two face line and a left hand wave when you have the centers with left hands.
Yeah, if they're moving forward, for instance, swing through, a tag the line off an ocean wave is not always comfortable at the best of times for a lot of people until you get to the advance and you got the turn and deal. If I was doing a right hand ocean wave, half by the right, half by the left, and I wanted to call a tag the line from there, personally, I would use a left tag the line. That's me, because it is more comfortable. There's an argument, oh, well, it's just like doing a roll and tag the line. No, it's not. A roll is a release and a static action on the spot, which changes and creates a stop and flow. That said, a left tag from an ocean wave, that's one that if it's not common in your area, would definitely need a workshop. Why are you going to do it in the first place? Is there something else that can do that action, such as left swing through, everybody face in, double pass through, create the stop action, or face in, do a left double pass through? It all depends on the comfort level of you as a caller and the comfort level as you as your dancers. If you want to introduce in your club and get those concepts down, I applaud your initiative. Make sure they have all the other basic concepts down first. And for God's sake, don't use that at an open dance. Unless you never want to be invited back and you want to retire early as a caller, use it all the time. Does that answer your question, Ed? Okay, Mickey, you had your hand up?
Yeah. I've got some comments to the tag the line. First of all, when calling tag the line and when we learn tag the line, dancers are trained to turn towards the center of the line, correct?
Yep.
Now then we do the double pass through action, and after that we have facing in, out, right, or left. So many dancers connect the word left with a direction to turn. And that's where you got to be careful. So when calling a tag the line, left shoulder, I prefer to say left shoulder tag the line, which is just the same as a tag the line, but we're passing on the other side. And it makes it clear to the dancers that we're not turning to the left or whatever, but it has something to do on which side we pass. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, and then regarding flow on a tag the line, I may have a different philosophy, because even if there is bad body flow before and after a tag the line action, tag the line to me is not a flowing action, just like a grand square. It comes more like a drill from the army type thing when marching. So I tell my dancers, in order to do the tag the line action, especially if we're going into half tag and stuff like that, we turn and then we walk. And on the other hand, a tag the line is a summary of extends. So unless we have more than a half tag the line, like 3/4 or a tag the line, I ask the trailers not to move, because usually they move too far. So I think we should put a stress on tag the line action, first turn, and then we see how the shoulders work with passing, and then we go the distance. And then again, we have to stop and turn. And of course, the adding and the following call must flow, but the action itself could be a little bit squarey, icky, okay?
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from. I agree with your first part of the statement on doing that action. As far as where it goes, we have trained our dancers, and that goes back to using the addition of a prompt or a helper word as opposed to defining a call action. From what I've heard, Mickey, you emphasize strongly when you're doing a left hand action, and then your helper words augment. So you would do a left shoulder tag the line, as opposed to left tag the line. And eventually that left or that shoulder might be dropped in your own club because you weaned them off of it. There's a big difference between tag the line left, tag the line right, and left tag the line. If the prefix comes before the call, you have to think about it. This is one of the reasons why I think it was Jeff, you might have mentioned this several sessions back, the difference between chase left and left chase. The prefix that modifies a call that changes a flow should be at the start. That's why it's called a prefix, not after the call. And on that, I agree with you 100%. On flow issues, all your calls should have a defined flow. That flow might be a stop action to create a new flow. It could be a systematic establishment action or a formation establishment action. That's the purpose of it, to create or generate a flow. So if we're looking at tag the line as an example, if I do a right and left through, veer left, couple circulate, tag the line, that has a flow. There's no real stop action on that, because on the couple circulate, one's moving forward, the centered lady, or the girl on the left who's in the center, is doing that trading type action, and she's flowing forward and to the right. I don't see a defined stop in that movement, nor should there be. If my flow was the other way, so I had a, let's take a look at the same kind of concept where I've got the boys on the outside, boys run. Now I'm in a left-hand two-phase line with the boys in the center, or the girls in the center, it doesn't matter. Couples circulate, tag the line. Again, there would be no stop in that action. The flow would be forward, up, but that would be absolutely horrible flow to call tag the line there. Left tag the line would flow very, very nicely there, because that's where it is. If your dancers are used to stop action,
it's not really a stop action. Maybe I misunderstood. It is that turning on the spot and then walking forward. It's one smooth action, but not walking around the corner. Okay?
It is, but it is in exactly the same way that the first action of recycle is to let go of hands and step forward. Okay, we have to also take into account dancer anticipation, flow, and what the dancers expect to do that is not contrary to those actions. All of that will fall in. And I know you know this. To teach tag the line, it is a stop action teach. Stop, everybody face to the center, and then you do your double pass through. And of course, it's always a right. If I'm going to do a left tag the line, it's a stop action, face to the center, and do a left double pass through. And that's how we teach it. But when we dance it, the flow should be contiguous as much as possible. Not a stop action. It would almost be danced as a single hinge. The same way Past the Ocean is probably the perfect example. Very few dancers, no matter how hard we teach it, are going to do pass through, face in, step forward to a wave. They're going to do that flowing forward turn the same as they would with the tag the line.
On the other hand, we got to think about dancing, okay? Mm-hmm. And dance groups, they train a lot to get a dance done by heart. Training like getting partners and couple type things, or triples in tandems or tridems. Now we've got that with a call. So if they all stay in place and turn at once, it's a gift what we can create with choreography to make Absolutely. It like a dance sensation with the calls if they're danced and executed correctly. Okay.
When you say dance groups, are you talking square dance groups or dance groups like ballroom dancing or
ballroom dances or show groups or whatever? And we can make so much dance sensation and dance with our choreo if it's executed properly, and if we use it properly. It's not always running around like in circles. There is a difference. Like if you have a star through and the hands go up, and if you have a nice hall, it's crowded, it looks wow. Okay, and if you have a certain spot, a hall doing a tag the line proper, they all turn at the same time and they move forward and then they turn again. And this is, I think, what the dance sensation can be if it's danced proper.
And that's what we're trying to achieve. I do want to iterate one caution though. Do not compare square dancing to round dancing, ballroom dancing, or other types of dancing like that, because the timing is different. The foot position and the rise and fall is different. In ballroom dancing, you're taught to rise up onto the ball of your toe and you dance on the toe and then glide down onto the heel. Whereas in square dancing, you're taught to shuffle your foot forward and rest on the heel. It has a completely different mechanism for the physiology of the body. Don't try and compare like a touch a quarter, walk and dodge. Oh, well, that's a common action in round dancing. It should be perfectly smooth. There's a whole bunch of other things that fall into those things to qualify. So be very, very careful when you use a comparative between another type of dancing, like swing dancing or ballroom dancing, to the mechanics of square dancing, even Scottish Highland dancing. Even though we have the same waves and swing throughs, we're doing it with a Highland jig or clogging. Very, very different steps and mechanisms. So you have a different feel of flow. Other than that, I agree with you 100%, Mickey. That's what we want to achieve, is that dancing action that is feeling the dance, being part of that flow. I think this was summed up best about 3 sessions ago, or 4 sessions before Christmas. We were talking about wheel around and reverse wheel around. I think Helen Tronstad from Sweden said, we don't say reverse wheel around because when it's called, there's really only one way to do it. They just go reverse or natural wheel around because that's the way their body flows. And it was like a call. You have to say reverse? Yes, you do. If you can achieve that, where you're calling and the dancers have no other option but to dance what you want to call, you call flibberty gibbet, and they'll do what you want. That's what every caller wants to achieve, that perfection in calling where the dancers are smooth and there's really nothing else they can do and they're doing what you want them to do. I haven't achieved that yet. Every now and then it happens on the odd movement, but I haven't been able to achieve that yet for a full dance. And I really, really praise those callers that can. I'm going to quickly go on to a couple other things that come up. My opinion of left hand for left spin the top, I think I've already explained that. I'm not sure whose question that was. Spin the top is a no right because the ends trade followed by the, yeah, I've already explained that. Yeah, if you're going to say left spin the top from facing couples, it's an absolute necessity if you want them to do a left hand start. If they're in a left hand wave, you can say left as a helper word. It's not necessary. And that's the difference between the two.
I was prompting on that too, so I was trying to hear what you had to say.
Okay. Left coordinate or left touch a quarter. Left touch a quarter is required because a touch a quarter is defined with a right hand action. Left coordinate is a helper word because you're already going to be in a left hand column or a formation for left, unless you're at the A2 where you get the funky coordinates from inverted T-bones and those kinds of things. I don't call it, so I would defer that to somebody else that uses it, but the same principle would apply. Star through double is a gimmick. Yes, I agree. We've gone through that. Styling of tag the line. We've gone through that. SSD week 1, reverse circle left 3/4. I've always loved that. This is exactly where that qualifier that says if there is another modifier or use of terminology that will achieve the same goal, should you use it? Okay, if I was calling to a square and I said all join hands reverse circle left, what do I want them to do? Circle right.
Circle right.
Okay, so why would I not just say circle right? If I'm calling to an SSD group and I go we're in week 1, so let's do heads lead to the left, circle right circle 4 right 3/4, instead of reverse circle left 3/4. I'm not achieving anything by using a technically meets the definitions but is infuriatingly confusing goal by saying something that is so technically correct that I need to conduct a theological seminary in order to explain it. If I need to pull up my definition book and say, okay, this is this, see, I'm right. Well, the dancer is going to say, yes, you're right. Thank you. I'm now going to go dance with Betsy because I at least know what she's talking about. I'm not saying that to be derogatory, but that's my opinion. And yes, you are correct, because there is a lot of printed material out there that will say things like reverse circle left, as opposed to, and there is a difference with, thanks, Eric. If you call circle left reverse, that means circle right, because you're changing a flow action, not setting up a facing couple action saying reverse. I want you to do the opposite of what I'm about to say you, but you're not going to call it that. We're going to do the mirror image of the call to explain, so that you're going to go the other way of what I call by establishing it with a left-hand flow, which we're going to reverse. Ready, go, do it. That's what reverse circle left means to me. And did that answer your question, Simon?
Yes, it's not a question. It's merely highlighting something which looked odd.
Yeah,
It was really
it is
partly why I wrote the material that I wrote for my supplement, because I thought, my goodness, if they're going to call stuff like that from Caller Lab, I think I'll do my own.
Yeah. It's also one of the reasons why I said, remember, I'm going to tell you this right now. I've been on the basic committee, I've been on the mainstream committee, I've been on the plus committee, I've been on definitions committees. Okay. I have been on that committee with callers that I have absolute phenomenal experience and respect for. I've been on those committees with callers that have, this is their 4th month of calling. Okay. Caller Lab is made of committees of callers and sometimes dancers that get together and they make the best decision they can with the information they know by consensus. They do the best job for the interest of the square dance community. And we as callers say, we'll do the best we can, and we agreed to abide by these rules and conventions until they change. Caller Lab is made of people. People make mistakes. And that's something you have to take into account. For instance, the term left star through is defined in the advanced program. No, it's not. Okay, it's not there. It may have been once way back, and the people that wrote that. Is it proper to call sweep a quarter after a recycle? No, it's not. Oh, wait a minute, we're going to change our mind. Yes, it is, because we've been doing it for so long. That's a convention. We change our minds. We do the best we can for Caller Lab, but we are only human. The principle is, once that decision's made, stick with that decision. And if it's wrong and you believe it's wrong, then there's a process to get it changed or to get it relooked at. And that's the process we all need to be using. I know that's kind of a politically correct answer, but it's important that you would say and learn and do something like that. And the best way to do it is to be involved. And I made a comment to a few Caller Lab members that I'm going to reiterate. We have a lot of people here from Germany, from Australia, sometimes from New Zealand, from Japan. If you're not a member of Caller Lab, join Caller Lab, because the people that are involved in these committees are generally a small group of people that are involved in multiple committees, and their opinions are their opinions. And it's very, very commonplace that if you get somebody like Betsy Gotta and Tony Oxendine and Jerry Story are on this committee, and here comes Yolanda Van Dyke and Mel Wilkerson going up there, and we suddenly sit down, and we've both been calling as new callers, and we go, crap, these guys have been calling, they've got over 100 years of experience between them and wrote half of these programs and half of these movements. I'm not going to contradict them. Well, guess what? Betsy could be wrong. It doesn't happen often, but it could happen. At least that's what her husband says. She's never wrong. And he always gets the last word as long as it's yes, dear. So you have to look at that with a grain of salt. Mistakes do happen. It's not always right, but it's the best we can do. The last comment before we go into reverse Dixie style, only say reverse circle left for dancers who are more experienced in square dancing. You only say circle right for dancers that are learning. I disagree with that. I would never, and I have never called reverse circle left. If I want the dancers to circle right, I will say circle right. If I want to say circle right 3/4, if I want to say anything like that, the only time I would do that would be reverse single circle. And the reason is because that has defined flow action, which I am going to change. So I could call reverse single circle to a left-hand wave. That would be the only time I would call that reverse. And it's still not circle left because I'm changing a defined action. That's just my opinion. And like I said, I'm only human. I could be wrong. Okay. The question arose on reverse Dixie style, and I kind of figured it would.
Betsy has her hand up. Excuse me.
Sorry?
Betsy has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at a couple of other things, so I didn't have. Go ahead, Betsy.
Just my personal opinion. A lot of the SSD, I suspect, was written by Jerry Story, who went back a long way, and he may have gotten carried away with the reverse circle right. There used to be something called circle left. Reverse back goes single file, and you blend it into a single file promenade going the other way. And that may have been in the back of his mind, because I cannot imagine that he would have thought reverse circle left was a reasonable thing to call. And the other thing I wanted to point out, you're talking about Caller Lab all being human, and this goes way, way back to when I was much, much younger. One of the things that impressed me the first time I went to Caller Lab, and then I was a much newer caller and I wasn't, quote, Betsy Gada, unquote, was the fact that when you go to a Caller Lab, and they're still trying to enforce this, when you stand up to make a comment in the general meeting, you stand up, you give your name and where you're from and make the comment. And that doesn't matter if everyone in the entire world should know your name, like Tony Oxendine. It's enforced that way. And
Yep.
I think that's a great way to make it known to people that everyone's contribution is important.
I agree. My first experience with that was when I was in Germany at my very first ECTA meeting, and I was told it was for newer callers. It was we're getting onto this, and this was the meeting, and we're looking at this, and the panel was up there discussing a couple of challenge concepts like reverse the whoppity splash and various other things. I had no idea what they were talking about. And it was going on, and every caller in the room was nodding their heads. And I was going, I have no idea what the heck is going on. So I said, are there any questions? And at that time, I think it was Al Stevens, Bob Moffat, Dave Prescott, and I think it was Jim Harrington were part of the panel discussion. And I put my hand up and they said, yeah. And I said, yeah, I'm Mel Wilkerson. I'm a new caller with the Schwarzwald Tanzers in Lahr. I'm sorry. I think I'm in the wrong hall. I thought this was new callers because I honestly didn't understand a thing you were saying. I didn't want to be rude and interrupt, but I have no idea what you're talking about. And Bob Moffat, in his gingerly true gentleman, just started with that very slow. And he wasn't being sarcastic. He was acknowledging the fact that if you don't speak up and say something, just because somebody is a big name, chances are they're going to keep going and answer the questions they're asked because nobody else is interjecting or putting anything out there for them to deal with. So that's what you have to do as new callers, and that's what you have to do as experienced callers. I love your comment, Betsy, and I wish there was more that would do that. I'm just putting together some stuff here, so let's see if this actually works. It probably won't. It'll probably give me a big fault, but we'll see what happens here. And this is not going to mean anything if I'm not sharing my screen, am I? Hang on. Okay, Guido has just clarified the last advance definition that used left star through was in 2013. Okay, I've looked back prior to that. I don't have 2013, but it changes. So that's where we go with this. So let's just cancel that.
Well, this was just to make sure for those callers who use it, how long they're outdated.
Okay, can you let's reset that. Oh. Okay, so we're looking at reverse Dixie style. Who had the question on reverse? Was that you, Ed? Or Eric?
That was me, yeah.
Okay, what was your question specifically?
Well, just what it would look like. Just
Okay.
just thought I'd ask because I know the Dixie style to an ocean wave. I understand that. But
Okay.
I just want to see what were the actual mechanics in a reverse Dixie style. I just hadn't ever seen that.
Okay,
So I thought
So-
I'd ask.
you understand a flutter wheel
Yes.
and a reverse flutter wheel.
Yes.
Okay, so the concept principle is essentially the same. In a flutter wheel, the right-hand dancer goes in with the right hand free, meets, et cetera, et cetera. In a reverse Dixie style, you've got that half sachet, touch a quarter, left touch a quarter. Or sorry, right hand half, left touch, or the lead in, right hand half, left hand half, depending on where you do it. Usually it's a half sachet, touch, left touch. The concept of reverse is exactly the same, only the flow is changed because it's a reverse action. So the same kind of thing with reverse flutter wheel and flutter wheel is the same with reverse Dixie style. The left-hand dancer is going to go in with the left hand. So now we changed a clockwise flow to a counterclockwise flow. We've still got the touch a quarter is changed to a left-hand touch a quarter. So we've got a hand change, which is by necessity, and then it's followed by a right-hand action. So instead of having it end, when it ends in an ocean wave and it establishes something that establishes that center position to do something by hand contact of the wave. Not absolutely required, but it is a dancer expectation, and it's one of those things that they will anticipate to do. So I've just put this sequence up here. So
Yeah, it goes back to what you were talking about a couple of weeks ago, I believe, with the flow. And yeah.
Okay, so here we are, reverse Dixie style. I'm in a half sachet. Sorry, let's just back it up. I'm in half sachet lines. So I'm going to have the girls go in because they're on the left-hand side. Normally they'd be on the right-hand side. It doesn't matter who. It's just I've got the left-hand dancer going in. So they'll go in with the left hand instead of the right hand. There's the half sachet. There's the left touch a quarter followed by the right touch a quarter to establish the wave, and that's the end of the movement. And in this case, I did a centers action. It's not a centers trading action. It's a forward action, boys circulate. Okay, slide through partner trade. And on this one, now I've got the boys on the left side. It's the same thing. The boys will go in. There's your half sachet. There's your left touch a quarter. There's your right touch a quarter. There's the Dixie style. And again, I'm finishing it with a establish the wave. There's a centers action. So centers trade, followed by a recycle, sweep a quarter, pass through, and guess who? Alaman left or swing your corner. So the whole thing would look like not that. Okay. There we go.
Just a little comment. It's not boys and girls. It's right and left hand dancers.
Yeah, I'm just using the terms boys and girls as a qualifier because just to explain who's doing what. It is the left-hand dancer that would go in on a reverse Dixie style. Did I just lose my screen?
Yep.
You just went in space.
You minimized it.
That bugger. And they promenade perfectly. Okay, let's try something else here.
Depending on
Okay,
your this was a moonwalk.
Okay, so in this case, I'm going to start with the heads doing the action. Let's just reset everybody here.
You have one in the chat about a reverse Dixie style to a wave from a starting double pass through if the boys are in the middle.
I don't know what's going on here, but my system here is playing all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So let's just reset everything, put that there, paste. And okay, we're going to start this one with the heads. I've got both a reverse Dixie style and a Dixie style in this one. Okay. So in this case, it's the right-hand dancer would do the Dixie style. The left-hand dancer would do the reverse Dixie style. So in this case, we're going to start with the heads, which is the boys are going to go in with the left hand or that half sachet, or sorry, reverse half sachet and left touch a quarter. There it is. There's the Dixie style and extend, boys trade, partner trade, chain down the line, and a standard Dixie style, again, a centers movement. And there's your corner. And you can set this up pretty much over all sorts of different things. The secret to success with reverse Dixie style is establishing that flow. Okay, so you want to have something that's got that reverse turning action, like a partner trade into a reverse flutter wheel, same kind of thing, or a reverse wheel around, which I think is what we do here. Cast off 3/4, and I've got a girls trading forward, pass through, reverse wheel around into a reverse Dixie style with the ladies leading this time. Right into the swing through, recycle, sweep a quarter more, pass through, pretty much the same kind of concept. And swing your corner and promenade. And you can do it coming off a slide through, you can do it coming off of all sorts of different things. Did that answer your question about the flow? Yes? Probably not the greatest choreography, but it's quick, cheap, and cheerful. Why not the boys are the lead? Boys are in the lead for a reverse Dixie style to an ocean wave or in a double pass through track reverse. Yes, you can spoon feed your dancers, and I will guarantee you that many callers, when they're going to do a reverse Dixie style or a lot of reverse concepts or a left track 2 or any of these kinds of things, double pass through left track 2 as opposed to reverse track 2, are going to spoon feed the dancers with prompts and indications, just like Guido was, or sorry, like Michael was saying earlier, left shoulder pass, these kinds of things. Yes, I have no problem with spoon feeding your dancers for success to start with. And once you've done it a couple times, you wean off and they will grasp the concept. If you spoon feed and you have to stop and work it every single time you use it, then something's wrong. Walk away from it. A good caller has to know when to walk away from something that's not working and replace it with something that's successful and dancers are having a good time. Mark has said, in my 8 years of dancing in SoCal, I have never heard anyone use reverse Dixie style to a wave. First time I heard it was in Germany when I was dancing. It was quite common in the mainstream hall. Dixie style and reverse Dixie style made no difference. I heard it at some of the plus clubs in Ottawa. I heard it in the Alberta Callers Association. And I heard it in Montana. Those are the only places I have heard it until I moved to Australia. And then suddenly it's all over the place again, depending on where. Now I've only danced with a few clubs in Australia, and most of those are pretty solid dancing clubs. So that's where I've heard it. So the question that you have, Mark, is if you are going to use this with your group, even though it may be common someplace else, if you were going to use it, you would want to workshop it and maybe build a theme around it for that evening. Roz says it's used a lot it's used in Zoom dancing with good body flow. Yeah, it is. Reverse Dixie style has really nice body flow. But it's uncommon, so. Any other questions, comments, queries, points? There's lots of room here. There's a lot of material, but the idea of this session was left and right. If you remember that a left modifier is a change of hand or shoulder. And if things follow, that's where the direction change. A reverse modifier is a change of flow direction. And if the hands and stuff follow, that's part of it. So one is a change of hands, the other is a change of flow. And all the rest will subsequently happen along the line by necessity. Reverse right and left through. I hate it. I don't use it. I will never use it. That said, many callers do use it. I like the modification that was put on that. You notice they didn't say reverse right and left through. They said in reverse order, right and left through. And that falls very, very closely into what Mickey was saying about left shoulder tag the line. You're giving that little extra indication to say this is going to be different. It's weird. That said, that's just me calling. That's my opinion. I do not like calling a right and left through from half sashayed couples. I think it's absolutely abhorrent. It's a gimmick. It can be used at plus and advance. So what? I still don't like it. Again, that's my opinion. If your dancers like it and you use it successfully, go ahead. Klaus, you have your hand raised.
I think in the reverse order is a totally different thing. In the reverse order, it's not a right or left. It's from example, couples back to back, you can call right and left through in reverse order because they start with a courtesy turn and then do a pull by. That's a totally different scene.
Yeah, you would think so, but it's not. And that's why I would never use it. I have, but I can guarantee you that if you get up to advanced or A2 and challenge, there's going to be a lot of argument on that. And like I said, I don't call that. Those of you that call that level, you could probably chime in here. But if I believe if you say something, do something in reverse order, like if I said in reverse order, dive through, what does that mean? Does that mean the outsides arch and the centers go under? Does that mean the insides arch and the centers go under? Does that mean I have a complete? Does it mean I have a completed double passer and I say in reverse order?
A dive,
or would I just? Sorry, go ahead.
A dive through is a pass through and the ends partner trade. So if you have a trade by position and do the reverse order, then the
you can't
outside,
do it. You can't do it. You'd have to start from a double pass through position because that's the end spot. If you wanted to do in reverse order,
right,
you would have the outsides California twirl, make the arch and back up.
It would be kind of substituting action.
Not quite, because in reverse order, it would be your dive throughs, insides arch, outsides dive under, and partner trade, and the centers stay face to face. So if I did that in reverse order, I'd have to have the outsides do a partner trade, make an arch, and then back up over them, going backwards. Now, is that a reverse dive through? No. Is that now in reverse order, right and left through? Is that a left pull by, right hand and courtesy turn, or is that a reverse right and left through, or is that a left right and left through?
A reverse order is always if a call have different parts, so do the parts in the other order.
Yep.
So if you're talking to the dive through, the dive is two parts. It's a dive and the outsides do the trade. because California 12. So in the reverse order dive through must start with the California 12 and then the dive that's from the inside, the inside make an arch and the outside dive in. But
yeah, but they'd be
the
backing
California
up
12 is in first.
Yep. And when you look at that, and I'm not in disagreement with you at all, but that's not the way it's defined. And this is not the way it's specified in the definitions, because they're saying, oh, it's not a left, right, and left through. It's not a reverse. It's in reverse order. And that's totally contradictory to what it is. And in my opinion, this falls into the category of 1, I would never call it. 2, the only people that would ever call that are somebody that's doing very technical stuff or is calling it challenge and being a you-know-what calling for themselves rather from the dancers. And 3, that what you're saying is absolutely correct at A2 or challenge. Why would I want to even bring that down to mainstream and plus? Here we are with callers having a discussion on this. If we can't agree on that, why would we do that and explain that to our dancers and then expect them to understand it? We would have to workshop that. How long to make sense of it? It's not worth the effort in my book. But again, that's my opinion. I want my dancers to succeed and be happy, and I would just walk away from a call like that. And Roz, you put, isn't it all about dancer success? Know your group? Absolutely. There are some groups, MIT Squares, for example, some of the stuff that they do is absolutely outlandish and wow, but they love doing it. That caller is calling for that group. There's some DBD groups that do this kind of stuff, and that's what they want. That's fine. On your average floor, if it's not common, and I mean common in your area, not just your club, you shouldn't be using it unless it's a workshop. And if you're going to be doing a workshop, it's because there's a workshop scheduled as part of this open dance that you're calling. Otherwise, don't use it. Keep it simple, keep it easy, and keep it interesting.
I found reverse order is a concept in C3B.
Exactly.
And it's exactly a reverse order right and left through. You can see it in terminations.
I agree with you.
Start with
Klaus,
couples back to back.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm in total agreement with you. However, why is it defined differently or alluded to differently in the advanced program? That's where the contradictions are. And I take that back to the point that Caller Lab is people. And when trying to make these things clear, a lot of the time we cloud the issues. And something we clarify using left star through as defined in advance, it's no longer in there. That should have been corrected, but it wasn't. We are callers, we make mistakes. The people that write these are callers and make mistakes. But when it gets this confusing, it shouldn't be happening. And that's why you heard me say at the beginning, you build from basic up, you build the concepts for the dancers to succeed. And as they progress, if they want to progress, then they can go to the next level. Callers should not be grabbing something from C1, C2, C3, C4, whatever, and bringing it down to basic because that's the way it's defined there.
And there's another thing. That is the problem, what we have messed up in the last decades with the entry level, trying to be smart with things from the above and killing the dancing and the smoothness and the first step for the beginners and those who do not want more or cannot do more. Because if they lose that level, they have nothing. The others can still go up if they want more. So we should avoid doing that. All right.
Yeah. Roz has posted the definition of recycle in mainstream is different Cs. Absolutely correct. I like the qualifier, and that is one thing that I will agree with Caller Lab when they put that statement in there. New or newer callers should not use left or reverse modifiers other than those that are defined in the program level that they're calling. And that would be things like left square through or left swing through as appropriate. You don't have to be there as a brand new caller setting up, double pass through, leads trade, left, spin the top. There's no need for it. If you're a new caller, there's so much more stuff that is more important to being successful as a new caller, to have your dancers having success, than having weird and wonderful technical choreography. And this is why the concepts are designed to be built at the basic level as defined, carried through to mainstream, expanded on a little bit more, carried through to plus, built on a little bit more, carried on to advanced, where at advanced, they actually define it in the movements. And that's the first time they say, here's what the dancer should know for left and reverse concepts, dancing advanced. If it's not on this list, workshop it. I would personally love to see that on all the programs. Hey, we've got reverse wheel around, we've got reverse flutter wheel, we've got, if it's not on the list, workshop it. That's common sense. Common sense is unfortunately not that common. Have your dancers dancing and enjoying themselves with smooth, comfortable, interesting flowing choreography. That's more important than anything else. They're having a good time and you're calling successful. They'll come back to you. Being technically right is not always the best thing. Klaus, I love the fact that you did the research. Absolutely correct. And this goes into what both you and Mickey were saying. It may be defined up at that level, and that is an absolutely correct definition, but somebody somewhere confused it at advance, and somebody somewhere else is bringing it down because that's as far as they read into basic and saying, well, it says you can do this. Yeah, you can, but you shouldn't.
And it's defined in C. It should stay in C.
Exactly.
But sometimes, especially newer callers, use words or calls.
Mm-hmm.
They think they are right, and they do not know that they have a totally different sense in other levels. So I very often heard, especially in basic, single circle as an example. But single circle is a plus call, and
no,
it means circle 2.
Single circle is also a basic call. Single circle to a wave is a plus call. Circle 2 halfway or reverse circle 2 halfway is a basic call. And that's, again, where the confusion is, because if you look at your basic program, if somebody's got it open or I can open it up, you'll see single circle. You won't see single circle to a wave. You'll see circle 2 halfway as well. It's one of those anomalies.
You should not say single circle. You should say circle 2, because it's on another program.
On the other hand, I admit with what Klaus says to one extent, but on the other hand, I have to say that's the problem of those dancers dancing those high levels. Because if you're not up in the level, you wouldn't know about it. And the beginner caller doesn't know it as well. Who knows it are the high level dancers, and they got to recognize that they're at the mainstream or a basic floor. It's always that the higher levels or the tough ones gotta care for the others, not the other way around.
I stand corrected, Klaus. I've just read the 2021 definitions, and they have clarified it. A single circle is used six times in the basic program and in the exact same phrase. And it says some callers use the phrase single circle for circles of 2 dancers. Example, single circle 3/4 to a star through. The phrase single circle is not explicitly listed and taught at basic, so this use may cause communication problems. In addition, the phrase single circle is very similar to single circle to a wave, which is part of another program. Some callers feel that the use is improper. They don't say it is improper. They say you may feel it's not improper, but you're absolutely correct. And I would agree with you. If it causes confusion, don't use it. This goes back again, if there's something that is there that will achieve the goal that is clear and unambiguous, why look at a technical definition to achieve the same goal, such as circle left or do a left circle left 3/4? What the heck does that mean? Thanks for that, Klaus. And it also goes to show that even callers that have been experienced for a while need to get on the internet every now and then and check to see what the latest uploads of the definitions are, because that wasn't in my old one. We had this discussion before. I think, Betsy, you had your hand up, and Daryl, I saw you waving. Did you have your hand up, or? I'm just waiting. Betsy, go ahead.
I just want to add to what Mickey said about the people who dance advanced and challenge. If I really think that the people who dance advanced and challenge, who come out to mainstream and plus dances, are not looking to be impressed by the fancy choreography of the caller. But what I don't think they want the high degree of difficulty, but I think some of the callers think they do. And the callers start to cater to what they think the people on their floor want, rather than just calling for the majority of the people. As I told some lady at a beginner, an association dance that was for new dancers, the people who are here who dance mainstream plus and advanced came out to dance with the brand new dancers. They want to dance with you. You should not be afraid to dance with them. This lady was cowering in the refreshment section because she was afraid to make a mistake, because there are all these experienced dancers. They came out to dance with her. If the people who dance challenge, who don't care to dance with mainstream and plus, won't be there, and the ones who are there won't be impressed.
I had a similar incident a few months back. I was calling it a dance, and it was basic and mainstream, which is fine, 2 different levels. And then I was asked, oh, well, we've got a lot of advanced dancers. Can we do a plus star tip and an A1 tip? And I said no. And, oh, well, we always do that. I said, well, when the dance is over, if you still want to go, I'll be here. You paid me for the evening. I'm more than happy to stay till 3 a.m. and call, plus or advanced if that's what you want, but after the dance is over. And it was an interesting response, because there are a lot of callers here in Australia that say, right, I'm calling a mainstream dance. I'm calling mainstream. I know everybody can dance every tip. I'm not going to do star tips. A star tip basically means they're better than you, and look, I'm going to show off what you can't do. That's what it says. It's not what the intent is, but that's what it says to me. I'm not rewarding dancers, and I agree with you 100%. I'm not rewarding dancers for saying, yeah, I've deigned to come off my high lofty tower to dance with the minions at the lower levels. You should thank me for it and reward me by giving me special status. That's not what it's for. And I agree with you 100%, Betsy. Well said. Ed, you had your hand up.
So on this, I have had my mentor who got me into higher level programs. I mean, he would dance, come out to Dance Plus and mainstream, and every once in a while he'd do something different, and he'd just say different call. And some of that can be how the caller says something. So there is some of that they want to be out dancing, but if you do say something that is from another program, be aware that people might do something different.
You're absolutely correct. I also take into account, I had a discussion with Helen this morning, Helen Tronson from Sweden, the use of terminology, like for instance, a veer to the left. Oh, we haven't done circulate yet. You can do, boys on the outside, promenade one position. There's ways of going around things to do things. And it's really, really important when you get into the nuances of languages. A classic example is my wife is from Australia, I'm from Canada. We both are divided by the same language. And she made this clear, because the other day she said, I meant to say I love you, but it came out like you ruined my life, you cranky old bugger, something like that. That's a joke, people. You can laugh now.
So I also wanted to point out that I have advocated for callers to learn other levels, other programs. And the reason I do that is not to bring back slip and use that in a mainstream dance or a plus dance, but for things like quarter through, you can see some things that flow. And I think swing the fractions and what's the quarter, half, quarter, I mean, you learn some of the things and you can learn some shortcuts, but
Remake.
You can learn some flow things that are better and just go through each of the calls. I mean, you break down
Absolutely,
the
Ed. Absolutely. But there is an inherent danger in that as well. As I said, I was calling for just over 10 years at the mainstream level. I call up to A1 now. My A1 is rusty because I haven't called it in a while. But I would never have called advanced if I wasn't given a piece of advice to learn how to call advanced or at least A1. Otherwise, you won't get any festival bookings or bookings in our area, because the callers that were hired, they usually hired 3 or 4 callers, and you had to call mainstream, plus, and advanced. So I learned to call plus, and I learned how to call advanced. I love mainstream. I was very happy at the mainstream level. I still love calling mainstream. It's my favorite level. I never heard of quarter through, but I did do, hinge and the centers trade an awful lot. I never heard of a lot of these other, I never heard of AC Doocy. Well, that's not true. I actually heard of it when I was in Germany, but I did do end circulate centers trade an awful lot. You don't have to dance a higher level. Sorry, I got to stop saying level. You don't have to dance at a different program than you call at. It's sometimes helpful, but it's not necessary. What is necessary is that you understand the basic fundamentals and philosophy of calling, smooth dancing, timing, and entertainment to give those dancers a good time. You understand the mechanics of what the chicken plucker or the grid pattern is. You understand how to maneuver dancers around the floor and get in the feel of interaction and smooth flowing choreography that is interesting, has variation, is simple to dance, and they have success and they feel good about themselves. And if you call basic and you only dance basic, and there are some callers out there that only call basic and only dance basic, that doesn't mean you're a bad caller. It means you're taking the time to learn your craft. And if you want to go more, calling should be like dancing is given lip service to. Teach them the program, teach it well, let them dance it, let them enjoy it. And if they want to progress to a different program, they make the choice. Calling should be the same way. If we want to progress to another program, we make the choice as an individual. Unfortunately, the reality is not there.
Guido has his hand up.
Guido, yes, sorry. Doesn't matter. I was listening and I'm interested in the discussion. When we talk about calls from different programs, I have more problems with calls that are disguised. I've heard a caller in mainstream call recycle with the flow to a walk and dodge. You hear basic and mainstream callers often use all 8 or all 4 couples as plain English and not as a call. The programs Advanced and C have a lot of plain English used as calls, and they've taken this away from the basis, from the foundation of square dancing. You suddenly can't use plain English anymore because it has been given a meaning, and maybe in this moment mentally absently dancing dancer interprets this plain English as a call from his program where he usually dances.
Yeah. I need to correct something there, Guido. And this is one of the things I was talking about in vagaries in the way Color Lab definitions are written. You can use plain English at the basic level. You can say all 4 couples wheel around. You can say all 4 ladies chain. You can say all 4 couples promenade. There's absolutely nothing wrong with saying that, and it's part of the basic program. The problem is at the basic program, what it says is commands plain English, which means that you can give any command as long as it's plain common language English. You can give any command in German in plain German. You can give any command in Japanese as long as it's plain Japanese and everybody understands you, the same German. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The difference is, and this goes back to what Mickey was saying earlier, if there is a concept at a higher level, wrong. If there's a concept at a elevated program, it should stay at that elevated program. Just because recycle has a different definition at A2 than it does at mainstream, okay, doesn't make it wrong. What makes it wrong is expecting advanced dancers to come down and you call recycle. If they're dancing at that program, they should know the mainstream program. And if they don't, then there's a problem. I know it gets confusing. And it's the same thing with the callers. If a caller is calling at challenge level and is hired to call a basic dance, that caller should know the basic program well enough that they're not going to call reverse spin the windmill at a basic dance, you know, with dancers that only done 25 movements. He could probably get them through it, but you know, it's not what they're supposed to be doing. If it's at that level, leave it at that level, because the meaning of calls does change as the programs go up. And sometimes the expansion of the use of calls does change as the programs go up. It's up to us as callers to educate our dancers that dancing should be fun, it should be entertaining, it should be enjoyable. And if this changes, we don't introduce that change until they get to that program. That's never going to negate what you said is the problem. If they dance at that level regularly and they hear a call, they're going to equate it to it. Well, guess what? That's no different than a basic dancer equating, I think he means this. Eventually, it'll all sort out. As long as they're having fun, there's nothing wrong with the occasional mistake, as long as you let them enjoy their mistakes and learn from them. If you're doing it and it's confusing, you got to recognize it and stop it. I'll give you the last word on that one, Guido.
Don't have anything to add.
It's not usual that we're in total agreement on something. Yes, Beth.
But it's not unusual either.
There was a point in time when people inventing calls were using so many conversational words or phrases that Caller Lab started requesting that they not use such calls because the caller could accidentally use a call. And they actually asked people to stop using conversational phrases as
79
for
to
the name of
82.
call. Something like that, yeah.
That was the advent of a new call every week almost,
Oh, yeah.
or 5 or 10 new calls every week.
Well, you got your caller note service, and the first 20 things were the introductory new calls.
Yeah. Like when I was learning mainstream, we were hired to go and do a dance at the CN International Hotel because the club was booked for it. And there was this thing, heads square through, promenade halfway, down the middle to the right and left through, side square through, make a wave, turn half by the right, centers turn 3/4, outside circulate, hook on the end, swing through 6, boy get off, girl get on, half by the right, girls go 3, boys move up, swing your corner. Okay, today we know that as relay the deucey, but that's basic calling. You know, and it said properly, it'll time right out. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it wrong. We were expecting that, so that was fine.
Back when they had fewer named calls, the callers did all kinds of stuff with what they had. If you listen to an old Les Gochard tape, he has us doing everything left, right, and sideways. But the number of calls that were available by quote name unquote were many fewer.
One of the biggest direction calls. Here's a challenge for anybody. Ladies roll away with circle left. Ladies roll away with a half sachet. Turn the right hand lady by the right. Come back to the partner. Turn her by a left full turn to the corner. Turn the corner by the right. Come back to the partner left with courtesy turn and promenade. It's a directional call. Red hot.
Yep.
That was a classic example of Okay, we got to stop. We got to start giving these things a name because it's just taking too much breath to say what it is. You know, but those days, thankfully and unthankfully, it's a mixed feeling, are gone. But unfortunately, what I'd love to get back is the absolute positive of those days, because there was some really, really good, smooth, easy flowing choreography that was interesting, had variety. And if something was different or something was being introduced, it stood by itself and the rest of it built around the program as a smooth dancing flow. It wasn't technical after technical after technical after technical. Well done.
Well, in those days, in those old days, I still remember that if you went to a special dance, there was one program point which you never wanted to miss. And it was right after the warm-up, the first hour following was a workshop. And if you had the traveling callers coming through, that's when they workshop their specialities. And if you missed that workshop, you had your problem in the evening dance. So everybody tried to be there for the workshop, and then enjoy the dance, and then you had handouts. And today it seems like we old worn out shoes the dancers and dance them tired, and everybody leaves at 8 or 9 o'clock after the Grand March, more or less, and hardly there's anything called workshop anymore, but all kind of technical stuff which has nothing to do with the old meaning of the workshop. Yeah, it's bringing high levels down to the mainstream or basic program or whatever. And I think again, once again, this was we were on the wrong track with that.
Yeah, the dances used to be a 3-day event. Friday night was there was a dance, and there was a Friday night trail-in. Saturday morning there was a morning dance. 10 o'clock was a workshop in probably multiple halls, and then you had your afternoon dance, an hour, and then there was a workshop for the afternoon dance, which was used at the focus of the evening dance. Both callers were part of the workshop if there was 2 callers on the hall, and but those callers also gave a quick prompted walkthrough of what the workshop was for any dancer that missed it. That was a format that was quite common. That was a format that was quite common in Europe at the time, and that was in the early 80s. And it worked very, very successfully for a long time. And I agree with you. Now a workshop is any caller that's going to introduce something a little different is going to workshop it. It doesn't matter if you've got 16 callers on the program, you could easily have 16 workshops or 5 workshops. That's not where the design is. Dancers need to dance and have fun. I can't remember who said it. This is you've got to get them out of learning phase and into dancing phase and let them enjoy what they know. Teach them something new, great. Teach it, use it, but that's the only thing. If you're going to teach something new in an evening, that's the only thing new you're going to teach, unless you're doing a class specific. Yes, Guido.
Today, you can't get back this, what has been used a couple of years ago. The problem is dancers don't dance a workshop anymore. They dance the first tip, then they sit out 2 tips, and they get angry when they can't dance at the 4th tip because you have progressed with your workshop. If you have a plan for 90 minutes for a workshop, and you say, okay, I make it 6 tips or 5 tips, or brackets, as you say in Australia, you will have in the last session, you will have a lot of dancers who just come to the hall for the next program, and they really get pissed off when you do your workshop thing in the final and complete stage. You can't do that anymore. Dancers don't have the stamina to dance 90 minutes anymore, at least
And
that appears in workshops.
The issue is that wasn't the dancer's fault. That's us as callers, because we became complacent and we allowed recruiting and drawing dancers in to fall into the hands of the clubs who wanted this, and they wanted to escalate their level to their comfort dancing level and be seen to be in charge. And as the dancers got older and the callers got older, we maintained rather than built. And there's a lot more to it, but that's the long and the short of the story. It's not the dancer's fault. It's our fault as callers. And I'm of the opinion, if anything ever goes wrong in square dancing, it's our fault as callers because we're the ones that get paid. We should know better.
And we have to take back the leadership. It was easy for us to give it away. It was, you know.
Yeah.
It's
But
very
that is
difficult to get it back.
that is a different session for a different time, because we'll probably be here for 20 hours and still not come to a consensus on that one.
But I have another point to
I just want to make one clarification, Mickey. One of the things that Guido said, I want to have everybody take to heart. We cannot get back to what was. We should not even try to get back to what was. What we should be doing is trying to get what is to a state where it's enjoyable and it's something that people want to do. We have the tools to do that. We've got the ability to do that. We've got the skills and we've got the leadership to do that. But unless we all start working together on the same page, it's not going to happen. Okay. We need to call for the dancers, not for each other. And we need to call for the new dancers, not for the established club that is, I think it was, who was it that said all their dancers, Regina said, the dancers are all 70 plus years old and this is what they want. It's great, call what they want. But if you want to build, you want to build for new dancers with a fresh slate, with a fresh start. One, get rid of the angels, have a couple there to help out, or have two couples there to help out, or have a square there to help out, knowing that but they're dancers. Let them dance free if they want to. Don't make a special deal out of them or anything else. They're just dancers that you can use to assist. Get rid of this special status and get everybody having fun, because everybody on that dance floor, I don't care if they're the governor general or the janitor or an unemployed guy that is just struggling fresh out of high school. Everybody is the same on that dance floor. They're all square dancers. Treat them the same with respect and with dignity. Let them have fun and enjoy it. That's what they're there for. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, just coming back to a topic today with the left and the reverse type thing, just to make it even more complicated, but there's another action we have, which is called the wrong way type thing. So this also goes in that category where we do something different. Okay, and I tell my dancers always, when it says wrong way, you don't have to do anything wrong just because it says so. Yeah. So sometimes it's complicated, confusion. Yeah.
And that's where the definitions only give the prompt, but they never explain it. They say, if there is another qualifier or a modifier that explains what you want to do, use that instead of using left or reverse. Don't say reverse promenade, it's a wrong way. Don't say reverse right and left grand, it's a wrong way grand, and so on and so forth. Absolutely correct. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the top of the hour. It is 11 o'clock. If you guys want to stay and chat, by all means, I can leave the room open if there's any more to go, but I have been here since 10 to 11 last night. Wow. That's 12 hours doing this stuff. Time flies when you're having fun.
That's what you have to go onto the space shuttle.
Yeah, it's lonely up here. As I said, we are always looking for presenters. We are always looking for new topics. If you have something that you would like to have, I do have a rough outline. I've sent out invitations to a myriad of callers all over. I'm getting a few nibbles saying this. They'd be interested in coming in and presenting on a myriad of topics. I look forward to something different. I believe, Klaus, you have something that you want to present. Is that correct? And we're looking at February, yep. Probably the second week of February, and maybe even over 2 sessions, depending on how it goes. So I'm looking very, very much forward to that. It's for those of you that don't know, Klaus is pretty much a self-taught caller who has a method of calling which is similar, but there's enough variances in it to make it a different style and a different way of looking at it, which I am always welcome and always welcoming to have on, because as I said, the best method of calling, the best style of calling, and the best resolution method to start with is the one that works for you. And how I do it, how Daryl does it, how Betsy does it, how Mickey does it, or anybody else may not be the one that sticks in your mind. If working the grid or the traffic pattern is what works for you, then that's the best method. If mental image is works for you, that's the best method. If module is the best for you, then that's the best method. So if there's something that you're interested in presenting or something you would like to have presented, send me an email. You've got my email on the presentation on the chat, or I'll post it in the chat here. That's my email. So if there's something you'd like to look at or something you want looked at, I don't claim to be an expert on everything. I will try and find the best presenter. The opinions that I express are my opinions. I try to be right. I have been proven wrong, as noted tonight with the single circle. Things change. Have a look. I'm more than happy to hear anybody's ideas. And even when we, like, I don't know if any of you were in Don Beck's session today, Walt Burr and Julianne and myself, we don't always see eye to eye, but I have nothing but massive respect for the both of them. That was on the pass through, bend the line. Is that good flow or is that bad flow? I think it's good flow, but some people think it's bad flow. A lot of it has to do with timing and a whole bunch of other nuances. There's so much that files into this. Let's have a discussion on it. If you think it's interesting, let's have a discussion. That's how this session came about. Anyway, I've rambled on enough. I want to say thank you to Mark Hart, my co-host, who has stepped away. He also records it and puts it on the OC Callers website, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint presentation and my speaking notes for this slide. And as always, if you want to be on the email distribution list rather than going on Facebook, send me an email and I'll just add you to the email list. Floor is open, everybody.
Thanks, Mel.
Thank you, Mel.
Thanks,
No
Mel.
problem.
Thanks,
No
Mel.
problem.
We're by.
Thank you, Mel.
Yeah.
Good class.
Thank you very much. I have to go to sleep.
I saw your hand up there. Daryl, did you have something to
Oh, yeah, I got here late as typical. I want to say thank you, Mickey. Oh, thanks, Mel, too. But I did really appreciate what Mickey was saying.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Yes, we've just really let this thing get out of hand. And you're right, Mel, it's the callers. We're supposed to have the control and we don't. Now, I'm not talking about caller run clubs. I'm talking taking control of ourselves and the material that we're presenting out there. And that pass through and bend the line it just blew me away this morning. Hit me hard enough that I just got out of the session before I blew up and said something that I shouldn't say. So
for those of you that weren't there, the comment was pass through, bend the line. Is it good flow or
No,
is it bad flow?
it was said it's terrible flow.
Yeah, no, I'm putting it into a context here.
Oh, you're being
And the idea was if you do a pass through, stop, bend the line, or pass through and your timing is off and you allow the dancers to go forward 2 steps past the pass through and then bend the line, that center dancer is backing up. And that's what's shown on Tamination. The reality is it's like left tag the line on the flow. Pass through and bend the line, that center dancer is going to act as a pivot and they'll be slightly spread apart in the center. That's called square breathing and it's a natural part of the flow. Pass through, bend the line is a natural flowing action. It can be a bad action if you're stop calling or your dancers are used to pass through, stop, bend the line, stop. If they've been taught like that and they dance like that, it is terrible flow. But that's not the dancer's fault and that's not a flow fault. That's the way it's been taught and that's the way it's been drilled to them. That's my opinion. I think pass through, bend the line is great flow. But how it's timed and what comes after it is what's important.
It's got more to do with the dancers dancing. What makes dancing smooth is dancing roach.
Yep.
Now they come to smooth out all kinds of things. Right and left through and veer left. My goodness, where would they be in singing calls today without right and left through and veer left? There's not an actual combination there that flows, period. It's just one of the worst combinations that we have as a module, but everybody uses it. I know callers that call star through and veer left. That's terrible flow, but their dancers don't complain about it. And guess what? Their dancers have done it enough that they've learned how to smooth it out and go with the flow. Now, pass through and bend the line, there's not a nickel's worth of difference between that and pass through and move on to the next.
Yep. Or, as I was saying, couples circulate, bend the line, which they say is good flow, and yet it has exactly the same flow for two people as pass through, bend the line.
Swing through, boys, run, bend the line. Now, I'll tell you what, one of the most useful modules we have today is what? Invert and rotate. What is the most popular invert and rotate? Pass through the line,
bend the line, star through.
Okay, so it just I'll say that watching it on Caminations, it looks like bad flow, but Caminations is doing this sort of a thing. It's not actually doing the flow of the dance. Yeah.
So just to interrupt, if I get you right, you're not in common spirit with what they said with past.
That's correct.
That's right. The suggestion was called pass through and cast off 3/4. Now I'll tell you what would happen to my mainstream dancers if I called pass through lines, pass through and cast off 3/4. First thing, they'd be struggling to figure out what the heck I was expecting them to do. Now, then they would say, then I'd look at it and say, well, they don't have any hands joined, so they're going to have to find the hands, get those together. Then they're going to have to decide who's the end pivot point, all of the different things that are going to be unfamiliar to them. Now, to my way of thinking, my opinion, the most dangerous word in a caller's vocabulary is should. And I keep hearing them say, they should be able to do that. If we called it enough, they'd be able to do it. No. If you do that, gang, all you're doing is what Mickey was directing towards, is you're adding difficulty to what you have to teach in your classes. You add difficulty, your classes get longer, and you don't keep your dancers. Because when they graduate and go to the club, who's capable of dancing all this stuff, and you're throwing it all at them as new dancers, they're gone. So no, it did upset me this morning, and it takes a lot to really upset me. I've heard most of it through the years.
I'm lucky I didn't join this today. I missed it, but I'm absolutely with you. Yeah, especially if.
Thank you for letting me say that. I got it off my chest. Now I'll forget it.
Now, on the other hand, passing through and bend the line is, we're talking about beginner dancers as well. No dancer hates anything more than after a call be facing out or being orientated to face out, right? So, oh, I don't see the group anymore. Okay, so bend the line, grabbing hands and turning towards the center is something which they feel comfy with. And a cast off 3/4, by the way, it doesn't appear until mainstream. It's not a basic call anyway. So what you're going to call it in basic instead of pass through bend the line, if you want to, if you should.
Bend the line out 3 times?
3/4,
you can
right?
move on to the next.
Wrong way, bend the line.
Where the action goes away from the center. And so I'm with you, Daryl.
Yeah, there are a lot of things, and it's what was put in the explanation. I don't know if you caught any of that. Is a lot of it has to do with the delivery timing, what you set up before, the timing of the delivery, the execution command time of the call, and what you follow it with is what's going to make for the smooth flow. Any call used in isolation is generally going to be bad flow if you use it in isolation. Swing through, recycle is bad flow if you use it in isolation. swing through recycle is good flow if you use it together, especially if you're setting up, a buoys on the outside after the swing through into a standard ocean wave. That is all part of the essence of smooth dancing, and it flows from what we've learned of our foundation principles up the line to whatever level. Looking at a call in isolation, pass through, bend the line, and I'm with you, Daryl. I was not impressed by saying that's terrible flow. It's not. It's good flow. But if they don't want to use it, that's entirely up to them.
And the same thing with using the technical things coming down to the entry level, to the basic and the smooth dancing and interfering with it. We got to be careful in discussions that we don't kind of work the calls like in a laboratory and forget about watching the dancers and the body movement and their reactions and how they feel. I mean, like testing on real people. That's what we got to watch, and how they feel and see the smile on their faces or not. Sometimes we're too technical or too like in a hospital, in a operation unit where everything is just sterile. What do you call it? Sterile.
Sterile.
Pardon?
Sterile.
Yeah, sterile. So and that's not the real life out there. That's not how we're gonna get new dancers and create enthusiasm. Yeah, it's too sterile. I guess that's the word.
Yeah, it's very, very different than the German word sterile.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're confused between the German and the English, you can always use the French word sterile. I'm just being facetious now. I shouldn't be. Yeah.
Sometimes in German, I look for the English word. I've got it, and talking English, if it gets very sophisticated with argumentation and stuff, it has nothing to do with calling and stuff like that. Then I'd rather use German words, and then translate. It becomes very funny for people listening, probably.
Mm. Yes, Daryl.
I will qualify everything I've said about the session. Now, I did write Don back and expressed what I just said anyway. But the thing that bothered me most was I saw some brand new up and coming callers that are just learning to call that were tuned into that session. And that's what they were hearing. And I left, so I don't know what transpired after that. I didn't catch on.
There was a pretty deep discussion on that in the chat. We moved on to something else because there was agreements and disagreement. Most people were saying it's good flow, it's standard, it's one of the basic flow modules. But there was support with Walt and Julie about it being terrible flow. I disagree.
I didn't say Walt.
And when it came back, it was we're going to have to disagree or agree to disagree. But we moved on to something else. At which point Walter said, "It's not often I agree with Mel, but we both agree on this." So that's where it ended.
So seeing every green grass.
What was that?
I think John is having a conversation, but he's not muted.
Yeah, they come. Cincinnati came from behind.
You're watching a football game there, John.
Sorry. I thought I don't. I
No
thought
worries.
I was on.
Yeah. No worries. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going around. Daryl, I still want to have you. I told you I'm going to keep bugging you until you're going to come in and talk about the concept moving and using the goal posting as a concept moving around the grid. I still want it. It's a good new caller method of choreographic management. So I still want it.
Well, I'll consider. Right now I'm up to here in putting together a PowerPoint document for the real, what I like to call the real newbies.
Yep.
The ones that are just starting out. This thing has gotten so technical. It's got to be a nightmare for somebody to just get started and have to deal with the language, the abbreviations, just what we do other than adding names and difficulty to what we've got is just gotten so far out of hand that I don't, these sessions like this and say, I can do this, blah, 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 blah. Good, fine on you. But don't you think that puts a little bit of pressure and scares some of these new people? It's what we do isn't really that difficult.
No, I agree with you. Like we had 2 brand new callers. Yolanda's a relatively new caller, but I wouldn't call her that anymore. I'd put her into the journeyman entry phase now. It's been what, 3-4 years now, Yolanda?
Well, but the pattern I've just been doing on Zoom basically.
Yeah, but
It's not
as
much
far as what you were, what the heck is that? 1P,
Oh,
2P
I was
corner
deers,
box, and that
deers
was
in the headlights. when
yeah,
I started.
only a couple years ago. Watching that progress, and it's like today's session. I was on early today to do a session with somebody. Then I tuned into Dawn's session, and I was on until almost 6:30, doing another private session with a new caller. And these are the kinds of things that I laud callers that give up their time to do this, and they do that for other dancers. Some charge a fee for it and run caller schools. Others do those kinds of things for brand new callers. One of the aspects that I want to get into these sessions is the material is not highfalutin, funky way out there, but there is a lot of material that is highfalutin, funky way out there that's part of the discussion. But part of that is also there's good material there for the newer callers. And more importantly, there's material there for the journeyman or the experienced callers to take, and the ability to take it down and mentor a new caller with the basic fundamental principles. Where it struck me was the first time I sat in one of these sessions on modular calling. There was an apology that this session took a whole hour to understand everything you needed to know about modules. And I went, what? We did 6 one-hour sessions, 4 follow-up sessions, and one of the discussions ended up going, I think you were in on that one, Yolanda, about 9 hours after and there was I think there was 8 new callers in that one, and we only just barely touched after 6 formal sessions and 4 other sessions. We've only barely scratched the surface of understanding modules because we take it back one step at a time. You learn what is a form, right from scratch. Now, you can't do that in a caller school. And I think, Hannah, you said that quite eloquently. It's like drinking from a fire hose. Yes, it is. There's a lot of onus on new callers to learn a lot, but there's a lot of resources available. And I applaud and I encourage anybody with any experience, if you've got the ability to teach and pass on that information, do it, but do it in a way that you're not going to confuse a new caller, but always, always, always start with the basic fundamentals first. That's the important thing.
And Mel, I want to thank you because as I've been sitting through these sessions, somehow I'm absorbing it. I don't have it memorized. Don't get me wrong, but I'm absorbing it. So I was actually in a session a couple of weeks ago, and somebody brought up magic modules, and I actually understood, what they were referring to, and so a new caller went, "What's a magic module?" And I thought, okay, see, I'm starting to click on, and I am trying to pass it forward. I know that's going to make some people cringe, but it's like, okay, this is, and refer to, the first sessions that we have and say, okay, now go back to that session and listen and take notes and so because I don't want to teach, but I can refer to the but it's slowly starting to sink in, some of this stuff. Well, when I
comments
started,
got-
I didn't have a clue what you guys were talking about.
All right. Most of us that are presenting don't have a clue what we're talking about half the time. That's why we teach. One of the things that came up today was the session I did last week on, I called it positive partner pairing, but probable pairing is a better title from Betsy. And it's just getting a couple facing each other anywhere in a line. So, and if you standardize your line, they're either facing each other or they're not. If they're not, a ladies chain pass through bend the line is going to make them face each other. Star through will pair up any couple, you know, and working from there. Well, it's a relatively simple concept. It deals with moving around the grid using that pass through bend the line star through concept. You get the full flow, but pairing them up. I had two callers, and new caller said, wow, I have been having so much trouble trying to find this with, I was given this technique, you know, two-face line, and somebody said friends and enemies, but